Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to a Fresh Stories book chat. I am very excited about today's guest because, one of the perks of doing what we do is getting to read books by amazing authors. And Betsy reached out to me on Instagram a while ago. I think Instagram or I don't even know, one of the
Yeah.
social media platforms, and introduced yourself and said I have this great book, and I bought it because I you sent me the arc, but I like to read hardcover books. I'm going to be honest, so
Appreciate that
I
a lot. Yeah.
I bought it, and the Ring of Salt, and honestly, and I say this I just with total honesty, it is one of the most beautiful books I have
Oh,
ever read.
thank you.
It is like a long poem, like, you get so wrapped up in it. It is gorgeous. It's heartbreaking. It is all of the things. Truly, I mean, I'm looking at the back. Of course, Jen Hatmaker was a fan because it's an amazing book. So, Betsy, without further ado, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Absolutely. Well, and thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you to say. So yeah, basically, my name is Betsy Cornwell, and I am a writer from the U.S. but based in Ireland. And I'm a single mom, a divorcee, and I work as a writer. I have six fantasy and historical novels for young people out. But my new book is a memoir, largely about divorce and becoming a single mom here on the west coast of Ireland. And I now live in a historic knitting factory that I am working on turning into a childcare inclusive arts retreat space for my fellow single parents. And that's why I just have to apologize for the background behind me right now because the house is under construction at the minute. So, yeah.
You're living the life that so many single mom writers would like to live. I just would like to say, building a space for other single mom writers and artists. But let's get into this book because truly, it's as somebody that has gone through my own abusive marriage situation. It's very hard to find other writers who understand the nuances of what that looks like, and you so beautifully wrote about it in this book. So tell us a little bit about what Ring of Salt is about. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't finished it yet because I'm taking my I'm savoring it because it's so beautiful.
It's the best thing to hear.
But I was telling my 12-year-old about it, and I said, "It's called Ring of Salt." And he said, "Oh, is that because you put a ring of salt around to keep the spirits, like the bad spirits away?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yes, that's probably why it's called that." He's like loves leprechauns. So, um
Awesome.
yeah. Okay, what is Ring of Salt about? Take us through this memoir.
Yeah, so it starts when I first moved to Ireland. Oh, here's my cat Teapot, who features prominently in the book. He
Yep,
has
in the
to.
book. That's right. Yes.
He's people always ask me if
Guest
Teapot's
star.
yes, Um, so Ring of Salt begins when I came to Ireland when I was 24 years old to do some research on a book. And I met a charming Irish horse trainer and fell in love, and we eloped. And it did eventually become an emotionally abusive marriage. And it became dangerous. And I had to flee our home with my baby on his first birthday. And so the book begins with me falling in love with my ex husband, sort of takes goes through the sort of journey of that marriage and then mostly focuses on sort of survivorship and coming after it, what happens after you leave. And that's one of the reasons that I was so drawn to the work that you do, because I think talking about like I think the idea I primarily wrote this book for other single moms and survivors. You know, those were the people that I wanted to speak to, and also to moms who are in unhealthy relationships. And I think when you're in an abusive marriage, the fate of single motherhood seems so scary and so bleak, you know? And so I really wanted to share honestly about what that has been like for me, because I mean it has been scary at times, but it also has been so wonderful. My highest goal for this book would be that it would encourage someone to leave their shitty husband and, and become a single mom, you know.
We That's our goal for a lot of women. There's so much to this. It's hard to explain, I think, what a book like this holds because it's not just about the marriage and you go through childhood trauma you talk about, but it's about Ireland. It's
Yeah.
about the ecosystem of building this person that you've become over time. And it's written in such a poetic, prose-like, lyrical way that it is like, your first young adult book was about mermaids, right?
Yeah, selkies, which are a kind of like
Right, the Selkies. And this does have that kind of hypnotic energy to this book, right? And it's just gorgeous. So from a personal question, What is it like to put this memoir into the world that captures this marriage?
I mean, honestly, it has been kind of terrifying. I think, like I this is my 7th book, and so I thought I was kind of an old hat at the feeling of vulnerability that you get when a book goes out into the world, and that people are, people can leave 1-star reviews of it, people can do whatever they want with it. But that has been so much more intense because this is nonfiction. It's about me. If someone doesn't like the main character, that feels a lot more personal than. And yeah, it's talking about these really vulnerable things, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to write about emotional abuse in particular as nonfiction and say, "This is true, this happened to me," is because I think people don't like to talk about it and the only way that they are willing to talk about it is if it's sort of couched in fiction and imagination. And it's
Yes.
so common, and I think people like to draw this hard line where they say, "Okay, if no one's being hit, then it's not an abusive relationship." And I really wanted to talk about that. But so the other side of that is it sort of didn't occur to me until a few weeks before the book came out that, like, other people are going to read my deep, dark secrets, and it has felt really scary. But I've also already heard just a week or 2 ago, I heard from someone who's going through family court right now, and, she told me that she's having a hard time sleeping at night, and when she wakes up in the middle of the night, she reaches for my book, and that is
Mm,
just, like, one of the most meaningful things
yeah.
I've ever heard, so
Yeah,
it's worth it
that's
for
why
that.
you write, right, that's why you write, right, I
Totally.
very much understand that. So who would you say the ideal reader is for this book, Betsy?
Yeah, I think absolutely, other mothers, and the dedication of the book is from one mother to another,
Mhm,
and, I
mhm.
think, I do have literary aspirations. I love lyricism, I love poetry, I like to think of myself as a literary writer, but I wasn't at all interested in sort of writing for the academy or writing for book reviewers. I wanted to speak to my peers, to speak to other single moms, and so that was my or I mean, I suppose you could widen that out to sort of survivors or people who want to have a deeper understanding of what single motherhood feels like.
Yeah, and also you talk about your childhood trauma a lot in this book, and one thing I admire that you do is we're very, very trauma informed at Fresh Starts, so everything we do is with that in mind. This
Yeah.
book is very trauma informed too, because you
Yeah.
actually tell people if you wanna skip ahead, and don't read this section, and I've never seen that in a book before, to be honest
Mm.
with you, and I think it's so, loving to say to people, like but also, I would like to add, for anybody that's been through severe childhood trauma, to read a book about you, no matter if it's an emotionally abusive marriage or whatever the situation and the adult side is, it is about a girl who became this woman who had to deal with all this shit. And, I think a lot of people can definitely relate to that. So truly it's for anybody, especially any woman that's been through a lot in her
Yeah.
life
Oh,
will
I love
love
that. I think
this.
a girl who became a woman and had to deal with a lot of shit, like, that's
Oh shit.
my lives,
Yes.
right? Like,
Before we let you go, I'd love to hear about what you're building currently behind you.
yeah, so, it's a sort of a little bit of spoilers with the book, but I did end up at the end of the story in a safe home for myself and my kid, which is this historic knitting factory on the west coast of Ireland. It's also a former cinema and jewelry making studio. It's a building with incredible history, and it's now our family home, and I'm also, as I mentioned, turning it into a, residency space for other single moms. So I do provide funded residencies. I do both arts residencies and rest residencies, which are largely
Mhm.
inspired by Trisha Hersey and the Nat Ministry, where you don't have to be an artist to apply. You just have to be a single mom who could use some rest. And you get to stay here for free for a week with or without your kids, and it also comes with a cash stipend for childcare. And so I currently we're doing big renovations because it is an old weird house with like a terrible old bathroom that has needed renovation since we moved in, and I'm very excited that that's finally happening. So it's total chaos at the house right now, but I'm hoping that all going well, will reopen in the spring for both paid guests and these funded residencies.
First of all, I can't wait to come because this is like I'm
Please.
so excited. I have to go to Ireland. And you make it sound so beautiful and mythical in your book, and I just appreciate your honesty. I know how hard it is to put your heart on in the world, especially with emotional abuse, because there was no bruises, and people will say, "But you weren't really, but you weren't,"
Yeah.
and it's really difficult, and it's so nuanced, and um So I just appreciate you sharing this, and it is going to save lives and heal people in a way that you have no idea even,
Thank
you're
you.
just at the beginning.
That means so much. Thank you.
It's
I know, and it
true.
was important to me to write about. Like, I love Ireland, and I think I was something I was thinking about in this book, is writing about heavy topics and how to make it something that's still a pleasure to read. I hope at the end of the day, and so I wanted to write a lot about how much I love the Irish landscape, and make this a book that someone might pick up just because they're planning a trip to Ireland. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to read your young adult novels too, because I think that, you're just obviously, I say this all the time, the difference between a mediocre writer and an amazing writer is huge. And
Yeah.
you are an amazing writer. And truly, I mean, I've been telling everybody to read this book.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
it is called Ring of Salt, a memoir of finding home and hope on the wild coast of Ireland, by Betsy Cornwell. Betsy, we appreciate you so much. I will put a link in the show notes, obviously on social media. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today before you
Uh,
go?
I appreciate you greatly, and I mean, I think the last thing I'll say, there's a whole crowdfunding story in my book of how my sort of community rallied around me to help me find a home, and that's one of the things that really makes the Fresh Starts Registry speak to me
Hmm,
so much, because I think divorce is so a time when you need your people to come around you, and you need to be radically able to ask for help, and so I think the work you're doing is so
thank
awesome.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you. Well, maybe we'll have to talk about a little scholarship fund for,
that would be awesome.
someday when, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be my dream would be to be able to, because that's my dream too, is to to provide a safe space for single
Totally.
moms to just take a second to breathe safely.
Yeah.
And I'm just thrilled that you are, sometimes people will go through stuff and they'll heal themselves and then they don't put back in the world, and that's all you're doing is putting back
Yeah.
in the world with your
Oh,
words, with the work you're doing, and we just appreciate it. It is so seen and felt, and I'm just grateful that you sent me a message and that I got to have this beautiful book on my bookshelf. So,
oh,
thank you for
thank
being here and all the work that you do.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, Lydia.